Hey guys, this is Andrew. I'm gonna tell you about the time that I almost cheated on my wife. Yeah, I almost cheated on my wife. It was a crazy time. We had a discussion or debate, whatever you want to call it, and we we just had a disagreement, and I couldn't take it anymore. Bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. Mm. Yeah, it was pretty rough. Yeah, and we were newly married, so I didn't really know how to deal with heated discussions. You know, discussions where one person has a huge disagreement with the other and nobody's bending. I mean, we were having one of them conversations where nobody was bending. Um, she wasn't bending. I wasn't bending. I felt like I was right. I really felt like I was right. And she felt like she was right and she wasn't bending. It was hot that day. Mm. All right, guys. I'm going to just put it all on the line and tell you what happened. Okay, so this is what happened. My wife was in hair school. This was back about 20 years ago. So, long time ago. And after hair school, she went over a friend's house. And a pregnant girl, about 8 months pregnant, right? So she was showing. Stomach was like out to look like maybe possibly like twins. I'm not sure. It was massive. Okay. And so she was over her house. And so I was driving at the time. So I would come and pick her up after I got off from work. Right. And I went over there, and I greeted my wife. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I greeted. So I said hi to my wife. I said hi to the pregnant girlfriend, 8 months pregnant, by the way. And I did a church hug, right? So you guys know what the church hugs are. You hug with space around. And so that's what I did. Okay, so this lady had at least 7 of the children running around, little little munchkins running around the house, and I didn't notice at the time, but one of the children was watching when I was in, watching me hug his mother. Um, yeah. Anyway, it was a church hug. Her husband wasn't home, right? So I'm assuming, yeah, her husband wasn't home at the time. So, so I left. Me and my wife, we left and got home, right? I got home. And I thought everything was fine when we got home. All of a sudden, she starts talking to the 8-month pregnant girl, right, with the 7 children running around. And I'm finding out that she didn't think that that was appropriate. Mind you, my wife was standing right there and she saw the church hug, right? There was actual space in between, even with the huge stomach that could have been like twins in there. Yeah. Anyway, she talks to her, and you know what this lady said? Do you know what this lady said? This lady said she felt offended and that it was not appropriate for me to give her a church hug. It was a church hug in front of her children without their father being there. Now, my wife at first just relayed the message, right? This was some mess. It was ridiculous. So I'm hearing this, right? And the conversation slowly started turning into, you know what? She's right. And I'm like, you were right there. It was a church hug. I mean, like, church hug. Big 8 months belly? Yeah. Well, 7 months? I don't know how many. It was a huge stomach. I'm telling you guys, she could have had like twins in there. It was ridiculous. And, yeah, I kept my distance, and then I just couldn't believe it. And I'm like, no, this is what it was. You were right there. You saw it. You saw it. There was space. But so she was like, you know what? She's right. Now, she told me, then we started talking about her attire, which, it was a church hug. I don't know how it really mattered, but yeah, she had a muumuu on, right? And it's called a muumuu, like one of those, you guys, you know what that is, right? Anyway, she had no business coming to the door or having company with a muumuu on. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, my wife was standing right there because we were about to leave. She was ready to go. So she saw the whole thing. We had no talks about this. None while we were driving. None while we were home, until she talked to the 8-month-old pregnant girl with 7 children running around. And so this conversation just slowly progresses, right? Oh yeah, you know what? She's right. Yeah, it's not appropriate to do that. I'm like, but it's a church hug. This is what people do, when you greet them, right? And it got to the point where I had to just leave. I had to step away and leave. So I left. Okay, so she comes out after me, right? Like, you just going to just like end the conversation or like just leave? And I had to go because I don't, it was crazy. So I had to go. So I hopped in my car and I skedaddled. And while I was in my car, guys, we were newly married, right? So I had no experience with discussions, different point of views to this extreme. So I had no experience with that. And so this was serious to me. So I'm in the car, I'm thinking, I don't know what she was doing. She was upset. Yeah, so I'm driving deep within my thoughts and everything. And before we got married, I used to go to the ladies' club. So that was the first thought that came into my mind. Y'all know what the ladies' club is, right? Yeah, so I'm thinking and I'm driving, and the conversation that we had, it just didn't make sense. It was heated, and I didn't know if we could actually fix it. I was driving, my head was spinning, the thoughts were just rolling through my head, and that was the first place I wanted to go. And so I'm driving. And something told me, don't go. So I didn't go. Yeah, I didn't go because I didn't want to do something that would permanently mess up the relationship. I didn't want to. I just didn't want to do it, guys. It came to me to not do it. But that was the first thought that came into my mind. So I didn't go back home, but I chose to go to my single mother's house. I chose to go back home to my mother and get guidance from her. And I talked to her about what happened and all of the things that we went through that day. I mean, I rolled out all of the scenes, and I told her, and then my mother, giving the advice that she could give, looking at what I was going through, I think she could see that I was distraught and that this was very serious. And I feel like she just wanted to protect me and guide me. And so she gave me some advice. She gave me some advice. And what she said was, divorce is not the worst option. When I heard that, I immediately was shocked because I went over there for guidance and encouragement. I was expecting to hear, go back in there. But instead, I heard, divorce is not the worst option. And it threw me back. And I heard it, but at that moment, I chose not to listen to it. And so I left. And I went back home. And this is what happened. Now, I had two options. I could just go in and talk to her and not tell her what happened, what I was thinking, where I went. Or I could tell her. And I chose option B. Despite us having a serious discussion earlier, I chose to tell her. So I told her where I was thinking about going, and I told her where I went. And we talked. I told her about the conversation that I had with my mother. I told her what my mother said. I told her about my reaction. I told her everything. Despite us having a discussion, what we were going through earlier, I told her everything. And she was listening. At this point, we weren't going back and forth. Like before we left, she was listening. And I didn't know how she was feeling. I didn't know what she was going to say. When she finally said something, she said she was happy that I came home. But she wasn't happy with what my mother said. She was upset about what my mother said. Because she felt like, and these are, if I recall correctly, she said, she's an elder, she's supposed to encourage us, she's supposed to, keep us together, she's not supposed to say what she said. And so, yeah, she remembers that to this day. Yeah. Uh, but we talked about what we talked about before I left the house. And we also talked about where I was thinking about going. And I told her, I said, I didn't know where, but I decided to go and seek counsel. And I told her that, that's what I was doing before we were married, going to those places. But I chose not to do that because we were married. And I value our marriage, even though we were in a heated discussion. And so I went to my mother's house, and I didn't get the answers there. We talked, and then we talked about the lady with the 7 children, pregnant, out to here. And you know what, guys? She was right. Right? I should not have hugged her. And that's why to this day, I don't hug. I shake hands. So it doesn't matter if you are a pregnant lady or, a senior citizen. I typically shake hands. That's what I do. Well, realistically, you just get the dap. Because you guys know what's going on. Yeah. But I had to share this with you guys. If you're married, newly married, you have to give it your all. You're going to have tough times. You're going to have times when you just don't agree. Right? You feel one way, they feel another way. But you have to come to a point where someone understands the other, or you have to agree to disagree. In this case, guys, I understood where she was coming from. See you guys next time.